Hey guys, hope everyone's doing well. One of the things I've been thinking about lately is how I subscribe to the biblical cosmology model and how the things that they tell us about the earth being whatever the 60 some odd thousand miles wide, and the sun being 93 million miles away, and the moon being 260 some odd thousand miles away, and all of these different facts that they have construed from this science that they kind of made up to fit the globe model. And one of the things I come back to is what they tell us about Pangaea, and how they say all of the continents were connected over 200 million years ago. Now, coming into this eschatology around the little season and looking at things from that standpoint, and knowing that what they tell us about the earth isn't necessarily true, and we have to take it that way. We can't, even before I came into biblical cosmology, I was a young earth creationist. I thought that the earth was only 7,000 years old. That's just where I landed anyway, from what I read in scripture. So you have to kind of take what's being said by scientists as far as it relates to Pangaea with a grain of salt. And so I started looking at it through the lens of the little season and how that might actually play out. If there was a moment, maybe in scripture, that could explain continents being pulled apart and, entire islands and that kind of thing disappearing. And there actually is. And it's tied to the second coming. So one of those scriptures is Revelation 6:14. It says, "The heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places." That's Revelation 6:14. And there's also mentioned in Zechariah 14 about how the Mount of Olives shall be split in two on the day he returns. And there's also some references, I think it's in Isaiah 24, I believe, where it talks about the earth is moved exceedingly, basically shook to and fro like a drunkard. And these verses, when you take them contextually, they are referring to a time when he returns to the earth. Now, given what we know about Pangaea, we say, well, that was 200 million years ago. Well, if you believe biblical cosmology, you know that number is very much possibly made up. It's not something that we could ever even know for sure scientifically. Now, I can look at the continents and see things like South America looks like it might fit right perfectly up against Africa, or how North America looks like it might actually kind of fit right there in next to England and the UK and Europe and that area. And there's other pieces that kind of, I think Australia kind of shoves up in there with India. It's just, it's interesting to see. I think I even remember seeing maybe a Pangaea puzzle as a kid, like how you could fit them all together on a little map, fit the little wood continents together, and they would all fit together kind of like a puzzle. But what we know about what happened in Jerusalem, the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD, and Rome basically collapsing shortly thereafter. And we tie that to what we've learned about Gunnar Heinsohn's theory about how they had this cataclysmic world event. All these things were happening all at the same time, volcanoes going off. And you know, one of the things that could cause these volcanoes to go off is massive tectonic movement. You know, Heinsohn's theory is basically that a lot of the ancient and medieval history all kind of was just fabricated and stacked on top of each other. And he used stratigraphy to determine that to be the case. That the dating from these structures that are all supposed to be hundreds of years apart all basically came from the same time period. And these places that existed almost 1,000 years apart were basically existing simultaneously, according to his theory. Come on. Now, I've tried to look for Pangaea before in scripture. Like I said, I was a young earth creationist, so I looked for it before. And I did find the talk right after Noah, where it talks about Peleg and how the earth was divided. Now, that could mean the earth being divided at the Tower of Babel, which is very much a possibility now, that's what that was talking about. A lot of young earth creationists do see it as the geological split. But looking back and kind of tying in this whole mud flood stuff and how this possibly could have come about. I mean, how do you have entire first floors of mud? And this is another thing. One of the things that these massive earthquakes would have caused is tsunamis. I mean, we have tsunamis all the time I think Thailand and, places where there's a massive earthquake, and then shortly after, a day or two after, you have this massive tsunami happening in those areas. And what does it look like after that happens? Well, it's just a complete muddy mess, complete and utter devastation. You have all of this stuff happening in those areas. So what if Pangaea didn't happen 200 million years ago? What if Pangaea didn't happen right after the flood and when Peleg was around? But what if Pangaea happened right after or during the destruction and fall of Rome? Now the mud flood, again, these are entire cities that have the first floors covered with mud, and a lot of this stuff had to be excavated downward. They had to dig down instead of digging up. So parts of it was still remaining, but it was just covered in mud. Streets were covered in mud. There's no roads. And you had these massive Greco-Roman style buildings. And this just wasn't in one place either. Like, this is not just, we're not just talking about, that was just in Rome. No, this was literally every continent, every country has examples of this. You have these things in Peru, Cambodia, India, North America. It's basically anywhere you want to look, you can find evidence of this mud flood. So again, tsunamis could be caused by these continental shifts. Volcanic ash can be mixed with some torrential rains. There's the soil. One of the things I've heard that happens too in these massive earthquakes, the soil can become liquefied and basically turn to like this mush quicksand. And again, maybe somebody who's done a lot more research on mud floods could maybe have some more insight into that. But that, to me, would be a global judgment. That would be a massive event that affects the entire world at the same time. And Pangaea happening, that would be some devastation that the world would have never have seen before and would likely never see again as well. So it fits into that mold as well. So if the world was one landmass and the judgments of Revelation have already occurred and the continents were split as part of that divine wrath, then you have civilizations that were buried and basically rewritten. That's happened. Because all of that could have easily happened. I mean, we're taught science in a way that the schools and the people that teach us or that are responsible for our education, we're taught in a way that they want us to know. We're taught things they want us to know. So, again, I don't know. This is kind of me just thinking and walking the dog. But to me, it just makes a lot more sense than, it just happened 200 million years ago and split up then with no apparent purpose behind it, other than, I guess if you believe in God, then you say, well, God must have done that. He did that for a reason 200 million years ago when there was no men, and maybe it was just the dinosaurs, right? That's all it was. I don't know. I think the Pangaea happening at a much more recent time and causing these massive mud floods, and then you have a millennial kingdom that was left to restore and renew the world that was left behind. I mean, you look at how Christianity spread and how it was basically all that was left. Like, these people knew that this judgment had come upon the earth. These people knew what had happened, and they helped rebuild it. So I don't know. There was definitely hidden history. There's definitely things that don't really add up. But again, this is just me kind of rambling and walking my dog. So take care, guys. God bless.